Good stuff. Looks like we're live pretty much everywhere. For YouTube, let me know if you're with me. We can do some quick shout outs and then get it poppin'. What's up, Jim? What's going on? What's going on? Who else is here? Who else is here, YouTube fam? One Tim. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but I greatly appreciate the subscription. Definitely. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope this video is a little bit enlightening for you as well. I love having the new people come, and I definitely appreciate the people who reach out, via inbox and things like that to let me know how much they love my stuff and love the things on the network. And I definitely encourage you to go check out Fiorella and Craig from the Convo Couch, and definitely encourage you to go check out the Rig series by Brandon DeGraff. The dude that does remarkable work. So, Bruce, what's going on? What's going on? I appreciate that. Nothing but love for you too. Absolutely. I love you guys, especially the ones who have been riding out from the beginning. We really just appreciate the staying here while we grow like this. This is just 2 years, people. 2.5 years we've been doing this now. Not even really, but I think we're closing in on 2.5 years, and we've just, like I said, have had so much growth because of you all. So, appreciate the love. The audio's low because I'm speaking low, Big Sherrill. But I appreciate you letting me know. I'll go ahead and turn it up a little bit, but I don't want to, y'all know I get loud whenever I start. Whenever I go into broadcaster mode. Anybody else want to shout out while we're sharing? And if you're watching this, please share. Please subscribe. The Natural Progressive. Speaking of natural, I just started taking Kratom to replace my Adderall, and Lord Jesus, it is amazing. None of the side effects, can't beat it. I now know why the FDA is trying to ban it. Because it's good for you. Way better for you than opiates, that's for damn sure. We'll give it about 1 more minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Anybody else want to shout out? Anybody? All right. There we go. I had to refresh the page. Oh, yeah, Bruce, you're correct. But Kratom isn't man-made. Kratom is a plant. The FSP Jones, what's up? What's up? What's up? Biavians galore. Can I get a shout out for Pachog Forest? I have no idea what a Pachog Forest is. Oh, you're saying it's a state forest. Uh-oh. Yeah. I'm gonna have to look that up. Drop a link. All right, peeps. Let me make sure that I'm good. All right, we're all good to go. What's going on, peeps? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream edition of Mi Casa Su Casa, and I am your host, Niko freaking House. What is up? For those of you who are curious as to why my show is named Mi Casa Su Casa, need you to do a little bit of critical thinking here. Mi Casa Su Casa, and my name is Niko House. I don't know how much more of a pun, or I don't know how much more intended the pun can be. But also, we like having everybody feel welcome, which is why I love doing shout outs in the beginning of the show. Because, you know, just I always like showing appreciation for those who have been riding out for us. And definitely for those who have just now joined us. And I hope that you all stay and subscribe and continue to be a part of this family, this growing family that in this relationship that we've all facilitated. We're very personable. Like I said, I tend to respond a lot on Twitter, people. When I can. Of course, we can't respond to everybody. It's impossible. But, you know, people who have been around for a while know I try to respond to DMs. I try to respond to Twitter. Definitely interact. Definitely comment on videos. I love hearing your opinions on videos and things like that. But I want to go ahead and get started. So, huge congratulations to Andrew Gillum. He won the Florida gubernatorial Democratic primary, and I am a little surprised, not because of the efforts of himself, not because I didn't think that he deserved to win, but because, I mean, let's keep it real, right? The corruption in Florida is indeed rampant, and I don't think that we can forget that. It's just a fact. It's an unfortunate one, but it is a fact nonetheless. And so for Andrew to have done something like this in a state that is so tumultuous when it comes to voting, it's nothing short of extraordinary, especially if he wins the race overall. But there are a couple of big takeaways from this race that almost every progressive in the country should be learning from. And the first thing I want to discuss is polling analysis. Because I don't think that enough people understand how flawed polling analysis is. Like, we see all the time these, I call them projector polls. Because one thing that you learn if you've ever studied polling analysis is that polls are used more so in the establishment world to sway or persuade someone about what's happening in the real world versus reflecting how people feel about what's going on. So I want to read to you what Emily's List was saying about the Florida Democratic primary gubernatorial race. This was what? I want to make sure I get the date correct. They probably changed the date. This is from Emily's List. Former U.S. Representative Gwen Graham commands over 30% of the Democratic primary voters' support in a fresh poll. Apparently not fresh enough, but but a fresh poll conducted on the eve of Miami Beach Mayor Philip Levine's expected entry into the wide open but low wattage race. Graham sits at 31%, while Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum stands at a 13%. Andrew, how could you ever come back from such a deficit? I'm explaining how he came back. Levine, is at 6%, while Orlando-based businessman Chris King is at 5%. Now, this survey was conducted with a large sample. This is according to Emily's list. A large sample, even though this is all of Florida. 1,796 people. And a 2.3% margin of error. What a large sample size. How did you even poll all of those people? Like, how did you even count that? Now, this was conducted by St. Pete's Poll, and this was commissioned by, quote unquote, the LLC Florida Politics. Gwen Graham is the only woman in the race. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later too, which could be a factor with women voters representing 58% of the Democratic primary electorate in the 2016 primary. Gillum is the youngest candidate in the field at 36 and is regarded as one of the most charismatic speakers, talking often about his rise over intergenerational poverty to a college degree to embark on his career in public service. Now, I want to read to you all another article. This is from the Tampa Bay Times. With the highest name recognition in the field and stronger support from women from former U.S. Representative Gwen Graham is leading in the Democratic primary poll for governor, according to the latest poll. In a volatile 5-candidate race, 27% of registered voters say they're going to back Gwen Graham, with 18% saying they're going to vote for former Miami Beach Mayor Philip Levine, according to the Mason-Dixon polling. In Palm Beach, billionaire Jeff Green was a late entry, but after airing millions of ads, he is in third place at 12. Now, after 13%, apparently Andrew Gillum, even though he was picking up steam around July 27th, he had dropped in the polls to 10% now. It's a little interesting because the race, for the most part, even though Philip Levine was always planning on throwing his hat in, the race for the most part was primarily Gwen Graham, Andrew Gillum, Gwen Graham, Andrew Gillum. And the more I live in Florida, in case you didn't know, I live in Miami, in case you didn't know, but what I kept hearing was Gwen Graham and Andrew Gillum, and it was pretty much a two-way race. And then the more I heard Andrew Gillum, and the less I heard Gwen Graham, Mayor Philip Levine is going to be entering the race here pretty soon. Why? For what? For what? Well, maybe if Philip Levine enters, then that's good enough. The Democrats are going to stop there, and because they don't want to cause too much tension within the party, right? Well, Andrew Gillum seems to be growing in his popularity across the state, and oh, what a surprise! Jeff Green joins the race. And once these two new candidates, and mind you, Mayor Philip Levine is not well known in all of Florida as far as like the average Floridian. Maybe in politics he's well known, but not the average Floridian. When those two enter the race, you're telling me that for the last year that Andrew Gillum had been campaigning, he dropped to 10% just because they merely entered the race. Now, what does that actually mean? It means that once again, progressives or anybody who's running for office really stop listening to these establishment-funded polls. They are chocked full of lies. They are. Remember, Hillary Clinton had a 99% chance of winning. Remember that. These are the same polls, the same types of polls, I should say, that we're relying upon to decide whether or not a Green Party or Libertarian Party or, an independent candidate can go onto the debate stage in the general election during the presidential races. Really? Think about this. The Tampa Bay is quoted Gillum at 10%. Emily's List quoted Gillum at 13%. They said that Gwen was going to obliterate Andrew Gillum. It turned out not to be the case. This is important to remember because they will continue over and over and over again to tell you, well, look at what the polls say. We shouldn't be surprised by this race because look at what the polls say. We also saw polls in California during the jungle primary with Pat Harris versus, was it Dianne Feinstein? Yes, Pat Harris versus Dianne Feinstein, where Pat Harris was in second place. And all of a sudden, when nobody really knew who Kevin De Leon was until like he went to the California Democratic Convention, the California Democratic primary opted out of endorsing Feinstein or Kevin De Leon because they didn't know what the actual Democratic Party was going to do. Then all of a sudden, Kevin De Leon kind of picked up steam, but Pat Harris really stole the show because he kind of stole his way onto the stage and was really winning over progressives, millennials, and even older style liberals because, I mean, he has a very common sense approach to his politics. So why are we still relying on these polls to determine whether or not we should be concerned or not concerned? Why are we using these polls to justify whether we shouldn't be surprised at them losing? Look at the polling numbers. The polls are lies. So if you are a candidate, if you are a canvasser, if you are a strategist, if you are a consultant, you make sure that you, what I always tell people, even when it comes to like just daily political issues that we engage with, put your ears to the streets. Listen to the people. Stop listening to the polls. I never heard anyone talk about Gwen Graham except for people who are actively in politics when comparing her to Andrew Gillum, and then on television whenever they would force her down our throats. And it's not that I have any personal issues with Gwen Graham. I take some issue with the way she has done some things in the past. But I'm just saying, like, I don't have any personal issues with her, but I never heard her talked about except for that's Andrew Gillum's opponent. I heard Andrew Gillum is awesome. Andrew Gillum was an amazing mayor. Andrew Gillum was, for the most part, I understand to be scandal-free. Andrew Gillum is very charismatic. Andrew Gillum was loved by the students of Tallahassee at FSU, even though FSU was a very conservative campus. And yet, somehow, some way, they were legitimately convinced that Gwen Graham had 31% of the Florida vote. But they weren't paying attention to what you should have been paying attention to, which is, how does the establishment attempt to deceive us? One is polling, indeed. But another huge clue should have been, why is Philip Levine entering this race? Because they didn't think Gwen Graham could get the job done. Then another one should have been, why is Jeff Green, the billionaire, entering this race? Because they didn't think Gwen Graham could get the job done. Because Andrew Gillum is indeed the most progressive candidate running, and he was becoming a problem. And the polls weren't swaying people because these are the polls they release. I tell people this all the time. These are the polls they release. These are not the polls that are initially conducted. What they do is they finagle and they adjust their sample size. They adjust the demographic they're questioning. They adjust this, they adjust that, and they finally get the poll that says this is who you should vote for because we all love winners, right? And this is who's winning. They did the same thing with Bernie Sanders. They're doing the same thing. Think about the polls you're seeing about the presidential primary thus far, right? Joe Biden is the Democratic primary leader, followed by Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris. It's like, really? So you're telling me Joe Biden, who people don't even remember that he already ran for president and got obliterated in the 2008 primary, all of a sudden he's become more charismatic. All of a sudden we forgot that he's conservative. All of a sudden we forgot that he's a neoliberal and a conservative. All of a sudden think people are going to forget about his contributions to the drug war. All of a sudden, when nobody cared about Joe Biden because of a couple of memes coming out in the latter part of Obama's presidency, that he's all of a sudden the front runner when Bernie Sanders is standing right here, when Tulsi Gabbard is sitting right here. Realistically, Ocasio has a better chance of winning the Democratic primary than Joe Biden. You know how I know this? Because I and others, and we listen to the people, we talk to the people, we have our ear to the streets, we're in the trenches. We hear what people are saying, and no one is talking about Joe Biden. Like, no one was talking about Gwen Graham. No offense to her, but this is just a fact. Now, the second big revelation, which I thought the Democratic Party would have learned from by now. Remember I said we're going to go back to this? I want to go back to it. Gwen Graham is the only woman in the race, which could be a factor with the women voters representing 58% of the Democratic electorate in 2016 presidential primary. Then at the debate between the four of them, Gwen Graham says, I might look a little bit, you might notice I look a little bit different. I look a little bit different than everybody else up here. I'm a mom. I'm in the PTA. I'm a school public official. And I am a woman with unique qualities that she's running in the age of women during the Me Too movement. Listen, people, I don't know how to put this in a nice way because it's probably going to offend more than one demographic. But I'm just speaking from a strategic perspective once again, because this is what I do. This is what this is the facts, and the facts a lot of the times don't care about how you feel about them. You notice how Andrew Gillum didn't mention that he was a black male once? I don't know if y'all caught that. He talks about coming from poverty. But Andrew Gillum never talks about being a black male. Because everybody can relate to being impoverished. You know, most people can. Not the 1%, but most people can. But everybody can't relate to being a black man. It's literally impossible. You know, when Barack Obama ran his, I mean, we can say what we want to about him because, you know, it is what it is. He was a bad president. But he ran an extraordinary and revolutionary campaign while Hillary's talking about, I'm going to be the first woman president. All Barack Obama was saying is, I just want to be president and I don't want to be a Republican. We talked about the fact that he was black. We talked about the fact that his father was from Kenya. We talked about the fact that it's amazing that someone named Barack Obama can actually win the presidency. But Barack Obama never mentioned the fact that he was black one single time. Why? Because can you relate to somebody who's from Kenya? No. Can you relate to a black male from Chicago or from Illinois? No. But you can relate to him being a Democrat. You can relate to him saying he wanted to pull the troops out of Iraq and Afghanistan. You can relate to him claiming that he wanted Medicare for all. You can relate to, I mean, he even had a push like this, kind of like this super Christian home or nuclear family thing that he had going on. You can relate to those things. But psychologically, every time you try and other yourself, you will unintentionally marginalize others. So when you play identity politics, do you want to know why it doesn't work for the left? Because there's way less of us as far as with unique identities or minority identities than there are of just everyday, easygoing, middle-class white people. There are more white women in the country than there are white males, right? But you're gonna have to literally win over and assume, by the way, that they would vote for you. You have to assume that all 58% of the white Democratic establishment, because that's like not even though it may be 50%, 58% registered as Democrats. This is Florida where it's a close primary, so you may really be off because 25 to 30% of them could be progressive women who remember exactly what happened in 2016. So you would have to hope that literally every single woman voted for you, And then almost all to even half of the men were not marginalized by your rhetoric saying that I should be voted for because I'm not a man. You get what I'm saying? It's not, it's just basic psycho. Like it's you unintentionally offend many males because there is a lot of male fragility out there. Like I'm not naive to that, but I wouldn't want some white guy standing up and saying you should vote for me because I'm white, or more specifically, because this is what it sounds like, you should vote for me because I'm not black. You hear how that sounds? Or even if we go for the most common denominator, the most common factor amongst people, which is Democrat, Republican, Independent. How often has anybody listening to this show right now voted for somebody because, oh, you should vote for me because I'm not Republican. You should vote for me because I'm not a Democrat. How hard do you think it is to bring Republicans and conservative-leaning independents in to vote for someone who is just othering everybody else who doesn't, quote-unquote, look like them or think like them 100% of the time on the issues? You have to win by being inclusive, not exclusive. Identity politics does not work for the left. It never will. Ocasio-Cortez did not win because she was a Puerto Rican from the Bronx, and she's a woman. She just happened to be a Puerto Rican from the Bronx and a woman. She didn't run on being 28, 29 years old. She just happened to be that age. She didn't run on used to be, she used to be Green Party. She ran on the issues that afflicted the most people, that she knew afflicted the most people, because she was in the streets talking to people and knocking on doors. So the identity politics game just simply is not going to work anymore. Not anymore. It only works with like conservatives. Because, being black, being white, being a woman, being a man, that ain't gonna pay my medical bills. None of those demographics, I don't get a voucher saying, hey bro, you're a woman, or hey man, or hey lady, you're a woman, here's a voucher for your medical bills because we have a woman in office now. Hey man, you're black, here's a voucher for your medical bills. You can get some tuition to college, that'd be nice, yeah, but they don't help all that much. They don't help you get a job afterwards. It doesn't help you pay off the tuition, the rest of the tuition that you have to pay for. Being a specific demographic or minority running for office, just because you look like me doesn't mean that the job that is going to get done. Like the job that I need to get done. It's like what Bernie Sanders showed. Bernie Sanders talked a lot about the issues, and he talked about the issues that affect everybody. And he did talk about, it makes it more powerful if Andrew Gillum is a black man, but he makes it a point to make sure that he understands that women do need better representation in the work in the work environment, and that we should be more cognizant of the disparate pay between men and women. Like, that's inclusivity. He's saying, optically, I know I'm a black man, but I do see your issues. When you speak to about the algae situation and the environment, and that part of Florida is more conservative, by the way, than the West Coast or than the east side of Florida. Then he's optically, I am a black man, but I care about your livelihood, even if we don't agree on everything politically. So the identity politics, this should be the nail in the coffin on identity politics. It should be the nail in the coffin, because Gwen Graham, for all intents and purposes, according to the polls, but according to her, she had more of a national stage than Andrew Gillum did going in. But Andrew Gillum never mentioned one single time that I know of, from the couple of times that I've seen him speak, and from the things that I've read about him, he's never mentioned the fact that he was black. He didn't have to. It's obvious, but that should not necessarily matter when it comes to the issues and when it comes to your record. People don't care anymore about how you look. That's where we want to be at. We can be excited that Andrew Gillum potentially may be the first black governor, but that means zero until we see the job he does. And it means zero when we're comparing records. Whenever I hold up the two records, I'm not like, okay, public, single payer healthcare, public option, check. Environment, check. Woman, check. Black man, check. Below 5'1", check. Above 6'2". Like, that's not being thought about when we're looking at the issues anymore. I want to know where they stand at on the issues, and so does everybody else now. And Andrew Gillum polling at 10%, polling at 13% just several days ago prove that. Don't talk about it, be about it. And that's going to be it for today's episode. Definitely want you all to subscribe if this is your first time watching. We definitely have a bunch of good stuff coming up. Huge issues within the Vatican and the Catholic Church with child sex abuse that I'm going to be covering tomorrow. Waiting for some. Didn't want to cover it right out the gate. I'm waiting for some more information to drop on it. But yeah, it's getting crazy. So like, subscribe, comment below. But more than anything else, always remember, people, find your balance. See you on justinforum.com. Peace.